Hello, Admiral Thrawn here, making the fourth and final faction preview video for my upcoming submod, Age of Petty Kings, a submod which takes place long before the actual Game of Thrones saga. It's thousands of years beforehand. Here I will be showing off the Ironborn rosters, specifically for the two factions, House Hoar and Houses Grey Iron. So while I set up the battle here, I'll give you a little bit of background on them. So basically, House Grey Iron has ruled the Iron Islands for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, longer than anyone could possibly remember. And during that time, they've had a relatively uneventful tenure, but they've made plenty of enemies. And House Hoar, meanwhile, is an Andal faction and all, and that's all that's put down in the books, and so I'll go into the lore that we've come up with and all. So basically, House Hoar has recently lost a big war back in their home kingdom in Andalos, the homeland of the Andals, and they have basically decided to flee to the Seven Kingdoms. And when they arrived, the kings of all the various coastal kingdoms and all, the Hightowers, the Redwynes, the Lannisters, the Reynes, they basically got together and said, you know what, we gotta deal with those Ironborn, so we're going to basically give the Hoars a bunch of money, a bunch of ships, and send them off to go take over the Iron Islands for the faith and whatnot. Now, so the Hoars will have a very sort of varied roster. It will include, it'll include some of their Andal knights who came with them from Andalos, like from their old kingdom. By the way, the Hoars, at the moment, their sigil is currently a golden ship. Later on, it would become a checkered golden ship with, along with some grapes, some trees and whatnot. But that was because of the lands they had conquered and all, so they sort of changed their sigil. For now, it's just the ship. But anyways, though, so at the moment, the let's start the battle here, and I can start showing off the rosters. So and finally, they made an alliance with the Greyjoys, and so basically the Greyjoys had been rebuffed by the Grey Irons, and so they secretly made an alliance with the Hoars to team up and take over the islands. So first off, you'll have your sort of pretty standard archer unit and all. They aren't quite as good as longbowmen, but they're better than this sort of generic archers and all. Now these here are from, like, basically these are House Greyjoy's Ironborn troops against the Grey Irons troops. Then next up you have Thralls. These guys are the worst unit in the game, though they only cost 200 gold as opposed to 1600 for knights. Basically, these guys are essentially slaves that the Ironborn sort of basically, well, enslaved and put on the front lines. Their purpose really is to counter cavalry in that they basically, they don't have the phalanx ability, but they can still soak up losses and basically form a meat shield to prevent cavalry from charging the more important Ironborn warriors. Then there's just sort of the generic raiders and all that. They have axes and shields. Then there's the Drownded Gods Chosen. These guys here are basically an elite Ironborn unit made up of the best of the best raiders. They wield heavy two-handed axes and have extremely heavy armor, because the Ironborn do not fear drowning, because they believe that if they drown, they'll go to the Drownded Gods Hall. So basically, they don't care about falling off the ship and drowning. So they have heavy armor. Then there are these Drownded Men. These are basically priests, and they have the ability to chant and to increase the morale of the other units and all. So yeah, they wield driftwood cudgels, and basically, yeah, they're pretty awesome. But all these units are, I don't want to say original because they're based on Medieval 2 units, but they're ones that I made based on Medieval 2 units. I'm gonna pull back my guys here. Then there's Ironborn Raiders. These guys are mounted Ironborn. These guys are basically the only cavalry that most Ironborn factions have, that they can train at least. And finally, there are the Hoar Knights. These guys are actually Andals that came with the Hoars when they first came to Westeros. By the way, I'm assuming it's pronounced Hoar, but I could be totally wrong about that. Anyways, though, so these guys, they will not be allowed to train more of them. You start off with some knights and some bodyguards, and that's it. So basically, the Hoars, the way that their campaign is going to go is they are basically in a position where they sort of get to make the decision, do they want to actually start converting to the Drowned God because they're running out of their Andal support, or do they want to stick to their guns and basically keep on being Andals? Anyways, though, so the battle is commencing here. The Grey Irons have a very similar roster and all that. Drownded Men, Drownded Gods Chosen and whatnot. Yeah, this is their sigil. It's the sort of, I think I'm not sure if that's the Drownded yacht or just some king or whatnot, but yeah, that's their sigil. And as you can see, the Thralls have already broken, because Thralls are, as I said before, the worst unit in the game. And the reason for this is because I feel that one of the biggest balance problems with Medieval 2 games is that the Ironborn have a really, really easy time taking over the Westerlands, and from there they basically win the game because they can just train their Ironborn Raiders there.
We are blessed. The enemy general is dead.
That's a placeholder general. I haven't put together the Ironborn generals yet. But anyways, the Ironborn have a really, really easy time taking over the Seven Kingdoms. I'm going to commit my reserves here now that the Thralls have soaked up most of the casualties. So, and to basically stop that from happening, what I have done is I have made it so that the Ironborn can only recruit their units on the Iron Islands. Now, they can recruit Thralls on the mainland, and they can sometimes recruit mounted Ironborn if they reach the cultural requirements.
Forging a worthy victory.
But basically, unless they have unless they have the requirements, they can't recruit the mounted Ironborn. Otherwise, it's just Thralls for the mainland, which basically means that if they want to fight in central Westeros, they're going to have to get their troops all the way from Pike and from Orkmount, which basically could be a major, major issue for them. Which I think balances them more because, as I said before, right now they have a way too easy time of it. Yeah, it needs to be more of a challenge for them to conquer the Seven Kingdoms, because, I mean, consider in the books, they never actually conquered the Seven Kingdoms, despite the fact they crushed everyone they fought, mostly because they basically didn't have the manpower to fight. Yeah, so that's about it for the Ironborn roster. I'll keep posting more preview videos for other things, like some map improvements that I've been making and whatnot. But yeah, progress is coming along very nicely. There is not that much left to do. I'm sort of in sprint mode right now to get this done. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more updates and previews. And yeah, Admiral Thrawn signing off.